Good evening, Mayor and Council and guests. It is now time, and I would like to call the work session to order. The first item, well, the only item for our work session tonight to talk about is the opioid settlement funds and the proposed men's treatment center. We're gonna hear from Grayson Evans and Denia Hensley, and probably some other guests tonight. I'd like to hand this discussion over to Bruce to make some introductions, and then I will moderate the discussion.
Sure. Thank you, Rose. First of all, I would like to welcome our guests, Judge Taylor. We also have representatives from New Vista. Thank you all for being here. Grayson Evans from the Bluegrass Ad, who's assisting Richmond, and Richmond, who was the applicant for a grant for the proposed men's treatment center. I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, a couple of weeks ago, council members were invited to attend a fiscal court meeting where there is an interlocal agreement in place now between the county and the city of Richmond, pending funding to pursue a men's treatment center that would be located in Richmond. We have found out through corporate counsel that should we as a city want to participate, that we can do that. We can invest the opioid funds, and this would be restricted to the opioid funds, which have very, very restricted use. Again, the county and the city of Richmond are working together to do this, and they wanted to see if we would have an interest in participating and talk a little bit about what that might look like, and where we could work together truly in a regional fashion and collaborative fashion throughout the county. Also, I want to recognize Denia Hensley, our Police Social Services Coordinator, or Community Resources Coordinator, depending on what day it is with her title. We had actually looked at needs in the city of Berea, and we're looking at, how could we perhaps do both. And I think the best thing for us to do is turn it over, and I'd like to ask Grayson if you would take the podium, Grayson, to give us, just to kick it off, and then we'll hear from Rob and from the judge after Grayson. So if you'll give us just a little briefing and overview. I know some of our council members were able to attend that fiscal court meeting, but I want to make sure that everybody has the same level of information. Grayson, welcome back. You have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. I think I've had the opportunity to meet most of you all on the council, but the project in question is a proposed $6.2 million recovery, hope, opportunity, and resiliency center, if you will, in the city of Richmond, that would bring at least 40 long-term recovery beds online for those recovering from substance use disorders. This project would be operated by New Vista, and I'm sure that they can tell you a little bit about their game plan on the clinical side of how this facility would operate. But this is a multi-phase project, and we're talking about the first phase of a development plan to create a recovery campus in Richmond that can hopefully have a profound impact on the opioid epidemic in Richmond, Madison County, Berea, and hopefully the region at large. But the project, or this initial phase, will create at least 40 long-term recovery beds, clinical treatment facility, hopefully workforce resources for those folks who are enrolled or are residents of the facility, to help those folks get back on their feet alongside the recovery program. We're looking at a facility that's going to create 42 full-time equivalent jobs, as well as the 105 plus temporary construction jobs that would go alongside building this facility or renovating the existing building that the city intends to make use of. City Manager Rob Meinrich can expand on that a little bit, but the city does have a piece of property optioned that would be the home of this new facility. So taking it a little bit further on the funding side, the interlocal agreement that Mayor Fraley referenced was passed a couple of weeks ago, and both the city of Richmond and Madison County have made a commitment of $1.5 million per entity to meet the matching requirements associated with an EDA, or Economic Development Administration, Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant that we will be submitting to EDA Region 4 in Atlanta online within the next 10 to 14 days, I would estimate. So goal is to have a capital stack that we can use to implement this $6.2 million project. That's a cost estimate. That is not based upon a bidding process or anything like that. So that's a ballpark estimate on what we think it's going to take to bring this recovery facility online. In addition to the monies that were contributed by the City of Richmond and Madison County, the remainder of the Bluegrass Area Development District's Area Development Fund, which is only between $150,000 and $200,000 that remains at this point. But those are monies that are shared by the 17 counties of our region. The board of directors for our organization has decided to use those monies to contribute to this project as well. So, there's certainly the hope that this is a project that has a far-reaching regional impact. And so that's kind of the 30-second high-level view of what's going on right now, Mayor. But EDA application will go in the next couple of weeks. 40 beds at minimum, at least 42 full-time jobs, the construction jobs, and total investment of $6.2 million. And hope to be able to leverage the opioid settlement monies in the communities and these grant funds to bring this facility online. And if all of this works out the way that we're talking about it working out here, this is a proposition that's debt-free for each of the communities as well as New Vista, the operator. So, it really is a win-win, multi-jurisdictional partnership here in Madison County and then hopefully across the region over time.
Good, thank you, Grayson. We're going to have some time for interaction and questions. But next, I didn't introduce Rob up front because I wanted to introduce him now. Rob Meinrich is the city manager in the city of Richmond, and Rob and the city of Richmond are really the people that spearheaded this and were the applicant, I suppose, initially going through the Bluegrass Area Development District, looking to see how this could happen. And Rob, I know if you wouldn't mind maybe giving us an update from the city of Richmond standpoint and what value Berea could bring to the process. should they
Absolutely.
choose to join in that.
Mayor, council members, for you all that don't know me, my name's Rob Meinrich. I'm the city manager in Richmond, and I guess it was about a year and a half ago, I was introduced to Grant Meyer with the Fletcher Group, and we had the idea of a men's rehab in Madison County. And as all you all know, that's probably one of the missing pieces of the puzzle in our county, really, for recovery. We've got a wonderful facility with Liberty Place, and definitely need a men's rehab center. So Grant and I partnered with Bluegrass Area Development. New Vista has come along as the operator. I approached Judge Taylor some time ago about becoming an equal partner in the difference in the project capital to do the project, and went in front of his fiscal court and they agreed to do so. So as of right now, we feel like the project's fully funded. Grant Meyer and myself looked at several parcels of property. They needed to fall within what's called a qualified census tract. And we did identify some property and were able to put a purchase option on that property. It is a school property that could be renovated for this project, so it wouldn't be a new build. And so that saves a lot in the construction. So the pieces of the puzzle kind of came together. We initially tried to get the grant application submitted, I guess it was last year about this time. Felt like we'd have a better chance if we waited. And it has turned out that it looks like the timing is good for that because there might be some additional funding available. So we're excited about this. We do have an interlocal agreement with the county at this time. And I think that we're going to go ahead and position the application, like Grayson said, in the next 10 to 14 days. But certainly if Berea was interested in being a partner in this, I think what we would do, if awarded the EDA grant, we could back into, once we got into the bid process and construction costs, because we all know that 6.1 million might be a little bit more in today's economy. So we could certainly look at getting into an interlocal agreement between the three governments. And we are dedicating our opioid funds to this project, and that's what they're supposed to be used for. So It's been a great partnership with the county, Bluegrass Area Development, and New Vista will actually be the operator. I know that was a question that I got at the fiscal court from one of you all, I think it was Jerry, about would there be any operation cost to any of the governments, and that would not be the case. New Vista would operate the facility. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Rob, and I'll note that Rob, I didn't know this, but this is Rob's first time in Berea City Council chamber.
right.
So,
You guys have a beautiful
welcome,
chambers.
Rob. We'll have to get you to come back. But we do want to allow a little time for some interaction and some questions, if you don't mind hanging with us for a little
Absolutely.
while.
We'll be right here.
But next, I'd like to hear from Judge Taylor. I would like for you all to hear from Judge Taylor, just to present his perspective on the value of this to Madison County in its entirety. Judge, welcome. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Council members, it's always a pleasure to be here with you. And I'll also take this opportunity to thank you for allowing the fiscal court to use your chambers once a month. So appreciate that. I think many of y'all that followed just the struggles that the county's had financially due to the jail, that many of y'all have watched the county and me as a government, as an elected official, want to try to bring solutions to problems that we have, right? And I have to say that this drug epidemic is one of the biggest scourges that we've ever seen hit our communities. I mean, it does. I mean, you think about the effects that this has on us as taxpayers, right? I mean, it does. It affects the taxpayers from a healthcare standpoint, from a workforce standpoint, from recruiting industry, to you know, our home lives, child care. I mean, education. I mean, it affects us in the medical. It affects us in so many different ways on a negative basis, and ultimately, you know, we're paying for it one way or the other. And so to invest in potential solutions is what I'm all about. As an elected leader, as a lover for Madison County, I want to invest in potential solutions. And I think investing in people is the best chance we have in overcoming this drug epidemic. But we're not going to do it by not having opportunities for them to become taxpayers themselves, right? I mean, the majority of people that are on drugs right now, that are struggling with this addiction, with this mental illness, you know, they're probably not really being a productive citizen of society. They're probably not sort of paying their way. And so this opportunity of this investment, I think, brings a great return on investment. The last thing I'll say, Mayor, is that this drug epidemic does not discriminate. It doesn't stop at the Richmond County line, the city of Berea, the city of Richmond line. Right, it doesn't. It doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop at the Madison County line to the Fayette County line. Drugs and stuff are running up and down these roads every day, and we're investing in law enforcement. You know, chiefs back here. I mean, y'all, Berea is investing in law enforcement to combat it, right? And so I think we can also do it by rehabilitation. And we can't just do one thing and not others. I think we have to take a diversified approach to combating this drug epidemic. And I think this is, to Rob's point, is one of those ways. We have a women's facility. This will be a men's facility. I think a great partnership also with these opioid settlement dollars will be a prevention component, which is very, very crucial in, I think, this big picture and this community plan. And I'm very excited about the opportunity of us doing this together as a community. It's not a Berea problem. It's not a Richmond problem. It's not a Madison County problem. It's not a law enforcement problem. It is a community problem. And so being unified in this approach with three governments, I think you all would agree that we're closer now as three governments than we've ever been. I'm proud of that. I'm very proud of that. And to have this opportunity is just, I think, says a lot. So God bless you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Judge. We also have folks from New Vista, and I don't want to leave you guys out, so if you'd like to come on up, and you guys can come up and tag team it, but
Yes.
welcome. And as I understand it, New Vista would be the operator of this facility if the grant's approved, if it's constructed, right?
That's correct,
Okay.
and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. My name is Nikki Stenice. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer of Nuvista, and this is Andy Brune. She is our Regional Director of Substance Use Services, so she is really the heart of what we're doing. Nuvista is the community mental health center for this region. We are the safety net. We provide mental health and substance use treatment along a full continuum from crisis intervention to long-term care. This project is one that we are doing. We have a similar project in Lexington, a residential treatment facility that we serve men and women. It's in a 28-day substance use treatment facility. And so this would give us the opportunity to provide a much longer range of treatment, a full continuum for individuals who suffer from substance use disorder. This project is one in which there would be a 28-day component, but then an ongoing transitional piece where we find it's the most critical, because oftentimes that 28 days gives you that initial moment to get yourself on track, but not the longer term care that oftentimes you need to be able to re-enter society, to get your social determinants of health of things like jobs and housing and even social connections built into your recovery process. So Nuvista would intend to operate the facility. We are a billable provider, so we would bill insurance as part of our operations. We also have some state dollars that go towards individuals who have substance use and mental health disorders. We will serve predominantly men, but we will have some females, mostly for those that aren't served at Liberty Place. So those who have serious mental illness or co-occurring, or individuals who often can't be served there, as well as those who are on medications for opioid use disorder like methadone, Suboxone. This site, we would intend to also provide some clinical treatment. One thing that Nuvista is very proud to be is a certified community behavioral health clinic, or CCBHC. It is a new model of care for Kentucky in the last year, which is kind of integrated health care. So we now have primary care in addition. So our goal would be to also have a clinic on site so that if you established care with us, you could continue to come back and be able to receive services ongoing beyond substance use disorder, but also stuff from mental health, see providers for your primary care needs. We would be able to provide those medications for opioid use disorder like Suboxone on site, and have access to our methadone treatment program, which is up in Lexington for those that need it. We would also be able to prescribe Vivitrol and other forms of medications. So our goal really would be to operate the facility in such a way where we'd be able to meet the needs of any individual with substance use. We are targeting also priority populations, which do include those that are justice involved. So if individuals are coming out of the jails, as well as recently Senate Bill 90 passed, which has a lot of prevention components to it, that instead of going into being incarcerated, being able to seek treatment. And so our goal would be to also look at places like that where we'd be able to get those who are the most vulnerable into care. One thing we are doing in Lexington right now is furthering some of our treatment to serve those who have PICC lines. So those are usually individuals who have more intensive substance use, that they end up having endocarditis and needing IV antibiotics. So we're looking at ways in which we can serve these more vulnerable populations so that we can be the safety net in substance use treatment for individuals who really have that high need. And that's the overarching view of the program that we plan. I would say, like, our goal is to be very adaptable. What we know about substance use is it is always shifting and changing the landscape and ways in which we can meet the needs of those who come to our doors. We are very much in line with evidence-based practices and staying up on what is the most appropriate way to treat individuals, and intend to continue to work to do that. The last thing I'll say as far as our plans, our recovery, even in our 28-day program, does include that connection to social care. So the part of treatment does include going to community groups like AA, NA, and other types of support groups. And so a big part of what our goal would be to be able to get that social connection and ongoing recovery supports for those who'd be entering the program. And that's what I'd say from the higher level, but I'm happy to entertain any questions as well.
Good, and we do want to open it up and have this to be interactive, if the council has questions. Again, this is something I think we all needed to come to the same level of understanding and see how we might be able to fit into this, because to Rob and Reagan's point, you know, this is a community-wide problem from north to south, east to west, in Madison County. It affects all of us. And if we can collaborate and make better use of our opioid funds, which have a very limited use, I think that that would be a very effective way to do that. But I do want to open it up, and you know, Grayson is here from the ad, of course Rob from Richmond and Reagan, so, and the Nuvista folks. So, questions? Katie?
I thank you all for coming. It's great to hear about all of this work that's already been being done, and to understand your philosophy of treatment and how you all will do things. One of the questions I have is related to the scale and how, because I know Liberty Place has more beds. Is it because this 28-day program is inpatient, so you'll have like a quicker turnover? Or is it just the size of the property, or what? Maybe, I don't know who that's a question for, but I was just curious about, is this big enough, basically?
And it's a good question. I think the phase one of this project is 40 beds, short-term beds. Phase two backs into 55 more beds that are a little bit longer term. And I think something important to point out here too, and they touched on it a little bit with New Vista, is the front-end diversion from incarceration is a good piece of this to help our jail. I mean, if it's a non-violent drug crime, there might be the opportunity for those individuals to go straight to this recovery center first. I think that's very important. And so phase one, to answer your question, 40 beds. And then I can't really speak to the treatment piece of it. And phase two would be 55 beds. Yeah.
And then didn't somebody say at the county meeting about how maybe even apartments, like close by or?
Well, there's other pieces to the puzzle coming together in Richmond. We have a program called Enrich that we recently invested $100,000 in them, helping them purchase a building, which is transitional employment and housing. It'll be a restaurant for people coming out of recovery. Actually, one of our policemen and his wife are the leaders of that program. It's a nonprofit. So that's a piece of it that's really important. The other piece, I think, is, as we're all aware of, is our homeless problem. Madison Home in Richmond, we've invested $150,000 in that program, and they're working on a renovation. And like you all, we finally just hired a full-time, well, we're getting ready to hire a full-time social worker. That'll be approved next Tuesday, that will be part of our police department that can start casework. And that's a big piece of it too, because as you know, with the homeless, if you can get them some identity, it might be just getting them a driver's license or identification and get them the help and get them in the system, you can help them. Some don't want that help, but at least you have a social worker that can start working those cases. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Thank you. I do want to come to David, and then we'll come to Jim.
I think this is a win-win-win type of opportunity. I think all of us, if we would admit it, know family and friends who have either benefited from some of these kinds of services or need to. One of the questions I have is, the project that you're proposing, is it modeled after an existing facility? And what can you tell us about that as far as a history? Is it something, a new venture for this area, or,
As far as the treatment is concerned?
well, other facilities? Let's say, is there something similar in Bowling Green or Owensboro or something like that? What are we looking at?
So what yes, because the level of care that we're providing, there's an accreditation specific for substance use treatment providers to be able to provide, it's called 3.5 ASAM level of care. But it's a standardized certification that is for these 28-day residential programs that certifies them as 3.5. There can be residential programs that are not, and there's ones that meet this accreditation certification, which we do. And there's a step-down version of the same thing. So we do follow the model that is kind of nationwide. CARF is the accrediting body, and it has to do with ASAM level of care. But yes, there are other treatment providers, at least that do these pieces. As far as the comprehensive substance use, like having it all in one location, is more rare. And that's where this is a huge benefit, to be able to provide both that higher level of 28-day program intensive, that kind of step down where you're getting groups and having more substance use treatment, but also starting to look for jobs, starting to look for engagement in the community, and then that element of eventually housing on site that can go a year, 2 years long. That is altogether kind of the best practice in going forward. It's hard to pull off because the reasons why we're here today, to make a facility to be able to provide this kind of comprehensive care, it happens, but it's hard to pull it all together in this way, which is what makes it unique.
Grayson?
A couple of things I'd like to add. I used an acronym a little while ago that's a favorite of the Fletcher Group, ROAR, or Recovery, Hope, Opportunity, and Resiliency. They have been involved with a project that's been successful in Middlesboro, Kentucky. I'm not certain who the operator is in Middlesboro, but there is a successful facility that the Fletcher Group helped facilitate kind of the planning and development behind getting them up and running. So certainly some of the stakeholders that are involved, have a track record of this kind of facility coming to fruition. Obviously, New Vista also has their facility in Lexington. But what I will comment about this project in specific that is unique and new is the level of community and regional investment, where essentially it's a local government funded operation from the beginning, if you will, given that it's multiple jurisdictions coming together and making significant financial commitments. There's nowhere in our 17 counties that I'm aware of. We have a number of recovery facilities, even those that are annually funded to some extent by the local governments. But at this foundational level, this kind of multi-jurisdictional collaboration hasn't occurred before in the recovery space. Obviously, the opioid settlement monies are we certainly owe a lot of thanks to that pool of resources that's now available, that this is even a possibility. But from a regional collaboration standpoint, I'm not aware of anywhere in Kentucky that's been able to do something like this, kind of from a community-funded angle like this from the outset. So that part of it's pretty special, I would say.
And I just want to add to Grayson's point on leveraging those opioid funds, that those do not come from our general fund. This would be strictly limited, and any of our participation would be limited to what comes from that nationwide opioid settlement and the fraction that gets allocated to Berea through some formula that we don't determine. So thank you for that, Grayson, and good question, David. I want to come back to David, but I want to give an opportunity on this side. Ronnie, and then we'll come to Steve. Ronnie, get your mic.
Well, I thought, when we was over there for county, ownership of the property come in question. You brought it up, Jerry. I mean, is it three governments gonna buy the property that you're talking to? Or what's the whole structure of that?
I don't know that that's been sorted out yet. We have an option on the property. There's actually three pieces to the property, right, Grayson? There's the first phase where the 40 beds will be. There's a second phase, and then the third is the green space. So it's kind of a campus. But to answer your question, I don't know that we've sorted out the ownership of the property. Certainly, the city of Richmond would be willing to take the lead in maintaining the property, because I think that's where we're going with the question. But I think if there was any kind of interlocal agreement between 2 or 3 governments, we could share the ownership. We could work through that, certainly.
Now I want to come to Steve. Steve? Okay. Jim, go right ahead. Sorry, Jim.
Thank you, Steve. Two-part question for the New Vista Group. How long have y'all been in business in Lexington? And do you have any kind of numbers on what your success rate is?
So I'm priming Andy that I'll ask her for some success rate numbers. I did say in the last meeting, one key thing that I feel like long-term success, real success is in time, and that's something that's more difficult when you're running a 28-day facility in which the dispersion across the 17-county region happens. So that level, I think, here will be uniquely able to see that. Regarding how long we've been in operation, so the state of Kentucky was the first one when President Kennedy signed the order for community mental health as a system. Kentucky was the first state to start with community mental health centers jurisdictionally. So in the 60s, we were established as a community mental health center. We are the result of 2 community mental health centers that merged in, I believe, the 70s, but we've been in operation since the 60s.
Okay, thank you.
Go right ahead.
So success rates are really hard to pin down when we start talking about substance use disorders. Relapse rates are about 85% across the board at some point or other in somebody's journey, and that makes it really difficult to pin down what is success, what are we looking at? But we have about currently at our Fayette County, we're at about a 60% completion rate for the full 28 days that somebody is there. We also have over 300 clients in our methadone treatment program that is in Fayette County. And we are increasing retention there through several different strategies in terms of keeping people around. And we've lowered barriers to be able to respond same day access and get people into treatment. So the rates are disparaging, sadly, but I do think that from our internal perspective, we have removed as many barriers as possible. We are increasing retention. And the other thing that I know has been touched on, but I think is so incredibly important from the substance use realm, is that part of the reason that these giant things, aside from the community collaboration, which I think is absolutely amazing, but another reason that substance use facilities really struggle in pulling all this off is because they don't have the kind of infrastructure that New Vista has. We have a methadone clinic. We have APRNs who can do primary care and prescribe buprenorphine. We have quick response teams who are responding to overdose calls in the field, and we kind of have the purview on all of those things and can therefore make them work together in a way that most people just could never dream of doing in at least the land of most substance use facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to come to Steve, and then we've got time for maybe one more question, and we need to give Zinnia some time.
This has been mentioned a couple times about the bid process, and these are projected numbers, but the cost estimates, how old are they?
That $6.2 million figure was a number that was shot high by a group called Model Group out of Northern Kentucky in the Cincinnati area. They are a developer of recovery housing facilities that was consulted for some of those numbers. At this point, that it's probably flirting with a year old. We've had calls and conversations about whether or not those numbers are going to hold true. You've seen what's happened with the bidding climate that's associated. Lately, it's very, very difficult to tell what you're going to get in terms of unit prices and those kinds of things from different contractors. And it's also very, very difficult to tell how many bids you're going to get. You know, we facilitate a lot of these around the region, and it's been a very, very mixed bag lately. We've had cost estimates older than this one recently, where we've come down within the money, but that's the exception rather than the rule. You know, certainly don't ever want to put a negative lens on any of this, but cost overruns are likely. So, you know, there's a very real possibility that additional funds may be required, but we won't know until such a time as we take bids. You know, that's an estimate. And the other thing to keep in mind is that you know, we've mentioned that this application will be going in the next 10 to 14 days. We are making the assumption that the EDA is going to provide the funding that we need. So, you know, I certainly think we have a lot of community support. We have the support letters from employers around Berea, Madison County, Richmond, and outside who have indicated they're going to be willing to hire the recoveries out of the program. We've done everything we can do to position ourselves really, really well, but, you know, we're making a big assumption there. So, you know, if we have to go back to the drawing board in terms of funding, there may be the possibility that we have to get creative with, you know.
So that's before I ask any of this, I'm fully in support of the project. It's fantastic. It's 20 years too late. I mean, we should have done this before. This is fantastic. But my question is, so do you have any idea what the inflationary cost was when they did shoot high, how much that was at the time? And then this is kind of a background question for probably our three governments. Have we talked about a contingency of if this comes in at a 30% increase, which is fairly normal at this point, which would be about $1.5 million, do we know kind of what we're thinking as the cities will work together to come up with, the city and the county will work up something to cover that $1.5 million? Are we going to, because I don't want us to end up with 20 beds because we can't.
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that Grant Meyer with the Fletcher Group was going to go back to, what's the name of the Model Group, and try to get an updated estimate. The other piece of this, I'm going to try to be optimistic about this project, because in talking with our contact in Atlanta with the EDA, you know, she was very excited about the collaboration between the governments and the strength of the application. Now, that's not to say we won't get it, but there's also the potential for additional funding above the amount of the $3 million that we asked for. So we're hoping that we might get above that $3 million and can back into asking less from the two or three governments. I hate to put that out there, knock on wood here, and we won't get the EDA grant at all, but I was very encouraged by our conversation with the gal in Atlanta about the strength of our application. And if we get updated numbers from the Fletcher Group, we'd be happy to share those with you.
And I do want to kind of wrap this up because we do have Zinnia. I want to be respectful. She has prepared her presentation as well on needs in Berea. But this discussion actually gets us to a very good point because this is something we could probably spend hours talking about. And I think everybody has a good idea of the plan. So what I'd like to do, and maybe Grayson, if you would, as far as next steps for Berea, I heard from Rob, I think that, you know, we need to see how the grant works out and then we kind of figure out where the need is. And it would require a resolution from the city of Berea and then some type of an amended interlocal agreement. Would you care to maybe touch on that and let us know collectively what the next steps may be for the city? And I would welcome Judge or Rob if you'd like to chime in as well.
Sure, Rob, Judge Taylor, feel free to chime in, but there's confirmation that's been made that the current interlocal agreement can be amended or changed such that the city of Berea can become a contributing party to this project. In the short term, my recommendation is just kind of what you said, Mayor. It's, you know, keep your powder dry for the time being, if you will, in that until such a time as we know exactly what we're looking at in terms of the award that we're going to be receiving from the EDA. It's difficult to say what kind of contribution might be asked or required of the city of Berea to be able to make this thing go. You know, certainly for the time being, there are other ways that you all could certainly support the project, be it additional support letters in the next 10 to 14 days that we could send along with the application, or, you know, a declaration from the city basically saying, you know, be it resolved by the city of Berea to provide support and assistance to the proposal on an as-needed basis. You know, you could do something like that, but to put an exact dollar figure on what's going to be needed or required right now is kind of an impossibility. So perhaps a declaration or perhaps a tabling of the discussion until we know what happens with the EDA award.
Makes good sense, Grayson. Thank you for those recommendations. And I'll get with you offline and maybe we can draft something up for the council to consider during a work session. And tonight at our regular session, we will not be making decisions. This was what I wanted to do with this was an educational process.
Sure.
And I think that we're at a really good place with that now. And I do want to acknowledge Rob Meinrich and Reagan, who I've gotten to be friends with and who really engaged not just me, but all of us by inviting us to be a part of this and to think about what this might look like if we could collaborate. And to Grayson's point, I don't know of anybody that has done this where several governments have gone in together. And we've been working, I think, up to this point with cooperation throughout the county and with the three governments. So with that, I would like to thank all of you and New Vista as well. Thank all of you for being in here in person and taking time out of your day. Judge, Rob, all of you. Grayson, thank you. And I'll get in touch with you, Grayson, probably in the morning if that's okay. Okay, good deal. I'll ask Zinnia Hensley to come up because I do want to give her time, and without objection, we may start our regular meeting a little late because I want to give her, told her we give her at least 15 minutes, so I want her to have the time that she needs. While she's coming up, a couple of things I want to mention is at this point, we still don't know exactly how much that we'll receive in opioid settlement funds. We feel pretty certain from conversations we've had that we'll get at least $400,000, which will be very limited what we can use it for. We think that it could go up to $700,000, but beyond that, it's really anybody's guess. And we're kind of dependent on the national level attorneys to be able to figure that out and translate that down to us. But one thing that we had asked Zinnia to do before is to look at needs in the city of Berea itself and what programs are out there that might benefit from this. So she's done a lot of research, and I wanted her to present her findings and recommendations. And my hope would be that maybe we could do a combination of each and spread this money out and make as good a use of it as possible. So Zinnia, you have the floor. Thank you for being patient and waiting for us.
No problem at all, and I do not need 15 minutes. I think I can handle this in 3 to 5. I wanted to say thank y'all for letting me come here, and I think the support for the treatment facility is a no-brainer. Oh, can you hear me now? The support for the treatment center is a no-brainer. A multi-jurisdiction attack on opioids would hopefully put a dent in our epidemic and allow us to get some, I guess, I just lost my train of thought. But anyways, we'll just keep going. So I think that we should help with the treatment facility, but I just don't want us to forget the small and the local organizations, and those are the organizations that the mayor had me research. So I reached out to at least 10 different organizations in the Berea city limits, and I think maybe one on the outside in the county, but with a Berea address. Those people are dedicated to supporting not only those in recovery from opioids, but those families, those grandparents, those children. They do a lot of supporting in that area. And I think that it is good to support the person who is in addiction and recovery, but I also think that we forget about the families a lot as well. I think the need to share our resources and working together, which we've been doing since I've gotten here, has gotten a lot better. And I believe that with giving more funding to these specific organizations, I believe that they will be able to they'll be able to do more with a little bit that what we would think is a little bit than a bigger corporation who would think that $1,000 to $5,000 is nothing. If you want to know a couple of those names, such as New Opportunity School for Women, I know that y'all have heard of them. They do a lot of work with women who had opioid restrictions. We have a lot of faith-based communities. We have a lot of support systems around here as well. We have Upward Bounds Ministry that's been doing things with the opioid epidemic. Here at the police department, we have a drug disposal program, or we need a drug disposal program, and we have those that's collected in evidence that sit there that need to be disposed of, but we could use some of that money to help finally get rid of some of that as well. So I have a couple ideas, and I have a couple sheets that I can send to y'all, or I can pass around, and if you have any questions, I'll be willing to answer them, if you don't mind.
While Zinnia's passing those around, questions for Zinnia. Again, this is a work session. We want this to be interactive. We're at a point now where we need to be preparing on how can we best use these funds. We've received a little funding, but not much.
Right.
And could be as long as a 19-year period that we get the funds over. I think it'll be quicker than that, but from what I've seen, the settlement, there are different timeframes that the companies that were found liable and that had to pay for that have to get that done. So questions for Zinnia? Teresa?
Zinnia, you mentioned that you had 10 organizations within Berea. Can you share with us who those are?
Yes, ma'am. They're all going to be on the sheet that's passed around.
Very good.
And there's a little snippet of how they help with recovery. And if you want me to go in detail, because I didn't go in detail on the sheet, I don't mind.
Why don't you go ahead and cover those, Zinnia? And like I said, we can't start a regular meeting early, but we can start a little late, and this is important, so
Okay.
I think we need to go ahead, and if we spill over a little bit, I think that's okay. Would you like to maybe just to mention them? And I know you can't give details on each of them, but maybe just mention the organizations.
Okay, so the New Opportunity School for Women. We have a couple faith-based churches who do Celebrate Recovery, and other things that can help with supporting family support efforts. When I say family support efforts, do you know how we have the Gailey Fund here and we're able to use that to help some? We also can have a fund just for those families when their rent was used to buy drugs, and their children needs clothes. Just small, it'll be a case-by-case basis. It will not be much money, I understand, but it'll be a little bit that will help. Law enforcement training and conferences. So we're a part of the PARI organization, and what that is that we try to help those who want to go to a drug rehab facility instead of placing them in jail when they don't have warrants that say that they must be. Drug disposal, I told you a little bit about that. Drug take back, drug destruction, the Mission of Hope. The Mission of Hope is the one that is not in the city limits, but I don't know if you know what the mission is. It's kind of like Goodwill, except it's a nonprofit that's on the other side of, I believe, Slate Lick.
Slate Lick Road.
So we even use those when I worked in Richmond, and I use it a lot here. When there's any family member who's calling who needs, because of drugs, it's because of a lot of other things, but in this situation, because of drugs, if they need clothing, if they need silverware, if they need furniture, they're willing to take a letter from that social worker professional and give it to them for free if they can afford. I mean, the clothes are only 25 cents, but if they can't afford that, they're willing to give them those. And I have a lot of grandparents who are raising their grandchildren because of the drug epidemic, and I send them a lot there to get school clothes, to get prom dresses, to get a couch or bed. And I know the schools use them a lot. Upward Bound Ministries, they want to start a prevention. Jonas Hill's father, he's the one that's over this mission, but he wants to start a prevention for younger teenage population. And this would help push him over the edge and being able to start that. Let me see, Sparks Ministry. Sparks Ministry is located in Richmond at this point, but they have been trying to get a satellite facility here, and they want to be able to, of course, they want to be able to start somewhere here in Old Town area if there's availability where they can get to the most people. They help with transportation, they do peer support. They help through the court processes as well. They do case-by-case, they do case management on a case-by-case basis. So they would like to come here, and this would help them with that initial cost for the building here to rent. And of course, we know room in the inn, Berea.
Good. Other questions for Zinnia?
Not a
Steve?
question, but really helpful information as we move forward on this. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions for Zinnia? Katie?
So what are these numbers after each organization, the 16 and 23 and 13?
That's for my own
Oh, okay.
way of
I was trying to make sense of
Catalog.
it all. Okay, great. Thank you.
I was working with numbers in my head, and yeah. this
That's
is
a
from-
secret known to Zinnia alone.
I haven't figured it out. I wasn't able.
I'm not going to ask. But where Zinnia's here, she's available to all you guys too, if you have questions of her or if you have ideas or suggestions, because this is something that's new to us. We've never had an opioid settlement, to the best of my knowledge, where we were going to get funds that would have very restricted use. So we're trying to figure that out, and that's, Steve, to your point, that's one of the reasons to have this in an open work session where we can really begin to think about that. I will note that we received about $65,000 in January. We haven't received anything since, as far as I know. So we really don't know exactly how much we're going to get or when we're going to get it or for how long. But hopefully those things will become clear, and we'll at least have the information that we need as elected officials to move forward and make the best use of those funds. Zinnia, thank you for preparing. Thank you for being here and for your work and for what you do every day. Thank you very much. All right. I think that brings us to the end of our work session. Does anybody need a few minutes before we call our regular meeting to order? May need a few minutes where we're running a little late. All right, seeing none, it is almost 6:35. I'll call the meeting of the Berea City Council to order and welcome everybody to City Council meeting Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. Madam Clerk, if you would let the record reflect that a quorum is present. This time, I would call on Teresa Centers to lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Teresa.
Father God, we come humbly before you, amazed that we can petition the Creator of the universe and that you hear our prayers. We ask that everything that's said and done this evening will be in your will. We ask that you grant us wisdom and unity as we seek your direction for Berea. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Teresa. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve by Jim Davis, second by David Rowlett? Is there any discussion on the agenda? A motion to approve. Seeing none, I'll request a voice vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion carries and the agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the March 7th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to approve? By Mr. Little, second by Ms. Wilson. Any discussion, changes, or edits for the minutes? Seeing none, I'll request a voice vote on the motion to approve the minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. The minutes are approved. And the next item on the agenda, it doesn't seem like a year's passed already, but we're happy to have Jennifer Lanehart, the Executive Director. And I think this is new, the Blueprint Coordinator, so you'll have to tell me what that's about. But the Executive Director of Hope's Wings Domestic Violence Program. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
We're in the middle of the jail and bail program, and I'm out, so I've got my money raised.
I knew we should have raised your bail.
So that's right.
A
So
little
Jennifer,
bit.
you have the floor. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. I get to come before you a couple different times during the year. April or this time of year is the fun time because we're fundraising, right? So we try to put fun into fundraising through a yearly thing that we do called Jail and Bail. Now, your mayor's mentioned that he was arrested and he's bailed out. His home incarceration has ended, lucky him. Zinnia, however, is still in jail. So if any of you are feeling generous, I think her bail is set at $300. And how short are you, Zinnia? You think it's what?
90, and I'm going broke bailing all my people out of jail.
I know. Thank you. You donated to mine. I appreciate that. But Zinnia's still in jail. So if you have a few extra dollars to throw her way, that would be great. And, you know, as I was sitting here during your work session, because I got here early, I didn't anticipate that. In my head, it was a 6 o'clock start, but I was glad to be here because first, we have great things happening in this county, obviously. And it is amazing how the governments are working together. But as Zinnia stood up here and she mentioned all of the small nonprofits that still very much need the support of their governments and their community members, I sat back there and I thought, man, she's not wrong. And it's great to hear all of those folks mentioned because sometimes we don't know who all's out there who are trying to help people who are underserved and hurting. And so I'm proud of Zinnia for doing that research. I'm proud that Berea has all of those resources as well. And we're proud to be a resource for Berea at Hope's Wings. Now, I will tell you, we're fundraising this year for a very big reason. Usually, jail and bail is something that kind of cushions our operating budget a little bit. If you know anything about grants, and I know that you do because I sat here and listened to you talk about them, you know that there are very specific ways you can spend that money. So Hope's Wings, we get lots of grants, but there's very specific ways we can spend that money. So our operating funds are just wildly important. So this year, just recently, actually, the executive director is being very transparent with you. I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown because at the shelter we have a lot of changes happening. But one very big thing that happened to us is a major plumbing malfunction. Now, have you ever had a plumbing malfunction in your house? Yeah, well, we had a very large one. Our building is on a concrete slab, and our plumbing pipes lost their pitch. Now, you fellas in here, you know what that means, right? It means that nothing's going up into your pump station. It's all just backing back up into your building, which is what was happening to us. It meant we had to dig up 40 feet of pipe, which meant we jackhammered up the entire width of our building. We had to close down 2 bedrooms, the hallway, and essentially the shelter to get it fixed. I couldn't bring more people in because we didn't have bathroom facilities for them to use, and we had a giant ditch going through the center of our building. It was a $22,000 fix. So that's why fundraisers like Jail and Bail are important for agencies like ours. It's why fundraisers for New Opportunity School for Women and your support for the programs like theirs and your food program and all of those things are important, because agencies like ours, we don't have big dollars. We are getting our big dollars from fundraisers and from folks like you who are supporting us. So Jail and Bail this year is fun, but I will tell you, it's wildly important because we lost a lot of fundraising dollars due to that plumbing issue. And not only that, like 3 days later, we had another toilet malfunction that flooded our entire office area, which luckily isn't going to cost us $22,000, but it did cost about $800, and that was fortunate. And that's not replacing the drywall and stuff that has to be replaced from that. But it's a stressful time. And so thank you for bailing me out of jail, because I think I did make bail. I think the mayor made bail. Zinnia still needs your help, and $90 doesn't seem like a lot, but I promise you I will turn that $90 into $180, because if I'm anything, it's a very good steward of Hope Swings money. So Jail and Bail, we will be at Central Bank this Friday in Richmond. We need to have a Jail and Bail here one year. We need to alternate like we started doing with lunch at City Hall. Next year, Jail and Bail will be here. I'll figure out a place. But this year, it will be at Central Bank in Richmond. If you want to come down and just have fun, just pay some money on Zinnia's bail or any money on about 30 other people who have agreed to be arrested, or you just want to donate a little bit, come see us. It's the nicest jail you'll ever visit in Madison County, and we're going to feed you well. We love to feed people. Katie has helped us with that. So if you've been to any of our events, you know that we love to feed people. And so we will serve you breakfast or lunch, and you can just hang out and talk with me. You can make phone calls and be arrested yourself if you want and raise a few dollars, whether you raise, $300 or $1,000 or $15. You can't go wrong in anything. And we always appreciate your support, and I always appreciate your time. So thank you for having me tonight, and I promise I will not come back until October.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're
We do
welcome.
have time for questions and answers for Jennifer on Hope Swings or anything that's going on at Hope Swings that you may want to know about. Questions for Jennifer? All right, seeing none. Jennifer, thanks for being here. and
You've
for the
made
good
my
work
day
that you
so
do in the
easy.
community.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate
you.
you, Mayor. Come have lunch with us, or
I will.
good. It'll
I'll
be
do my best to be there. I don't think I have it on my calendar, so I need to get the date from you
okay.
again. But
All right.
I was
Thank
happy,
you.
and I will give credit where credit is due. Jerry Little and Cora Jane Wilson were kind enough to help me bail out. So both of you, thank you for your donation.
Cora Jane always has our back one way or another.
And for
She
everybody
does,
else,
so.
no pressure.
You do.
But
you
your
do
but your
well.
peers have
I
already
appreciate
donated.
you very much. Yeah, no pressure. And just because he made bail doesn't mean he can't be an overachiever.
That's right.
And your mayor is an overachiever. Look at all he's accomplished since he's been in office. So
Thank you, Jennifer.
You can continue. Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
all so much. I appreciate you having me.
Yep, let us know what we can do to help.
I absolutely will.
All right, the next item on the agenda is resolution number 04-2023. This is the Ferristown Community Center Community Development Block Grant Project, and I'll ask Corporate Counsel Jerry Gilbert to read that for us.
Resolution number 04-2023. A resolution of the City of Berea authorizing the submission of an application for the Ferristown Community Center CDBG project. Whereas the Ferristown community located in Berea, Kentucky exists as the last surviving African American hamlet in Madison County. And whereas the city of Brea recognizes the importance of preserving the history of the Fairstown community, and whereas there is a need for more community gathering space and recreational events to serve those in the Fairstown community and the city at large, whereas the city of Brea is committed to improving opportunity and services to those in the Fairstown community and the city at large. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Brea City Council as follows. The city of Brea agrees and resolves to apply for HUD Community Development Block Grant Funds in the amount of $750,000 for use in a project entitled Fairstown Community Center CDBG, and further authorizes Mayor Bruce Fraley to sign all papers necessary to seek the federal financial support that would enable this project to move forward.
Thank you, Corporate Counsel, and I'm going to do something a little bit different tonight because we didn't have an opportunity for a work session on this. I know that this has been discussed some, but I do want to recognize someone who's joined us, and that's Logan Hart. Logan also, he works with Grayson at the Bluegrass Area Development District, and he's the one that's been assisting us with preparing the grant and guiding us with the process and the resolution. So I do want to recognize Logan and give him a chance to speak, and also Rose Beverly, because he's been working very closely with Rose on how we might be able to go about this to help all of us together to achieve the dream of having a community center in Fairstown. So Logan, you have the floor. Welcome, and thank you for the work that you're doing on our behalf.
Mayor. Really, the only thing I have to say is I think this is a fantastic project. We are, we're pretty early on in the process for applying for CDBGs this year, which is really, really good. We pretty much have a complete application at this point. Just working on some minor details to finish it up. But I appreciate you all helping us with this application. It's going to be a good project.
Thank you, Logan, and I'll note that Logan volunteered to do this. He came to us and he liked the project so much when we started talking with Ed about it. He said, I want to do that. I want to come to Brea and help you guys with that project. So I appreciate your eagerness and enthusiasm to help. But I also want to give Rose an opportunity where we haven't had a work session. Rose, would you like to add anything about this particular project, because you've been doing the heavy lifting and working with Logan?
Don't have a lot to add, just, grateful for Logan to help us with the project. We could not do that without the ads help and without you, Logan, stepping up. Just is a great project, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to work on the project, and we have some community support here tonight, and it would not be possible without that support. We want that, and we're grateful to have that, and they're going to help us work on letters of support, which is, as Logan can tell you, a really important component to the application when it gets going, and that's all I really have.
Good, thank you, Rose. At this point, I will acknowledge too the residents and property owners in Fairstown that are here. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for the work that you're doing, which is true community development work. It's grassroots at its truest form, and I appreciate all the work that's being done there, because it doesn't just strengthen Fairstown, it strengthens the city of Berea. So thank you. At this point, I'll ask for a motion to approve and adopt resolution number 04-2023.
So moved.
Mr. Davis, and second by Ms. Centers. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve and adopt resolution number 04-2023? Seeing none, I'll request a voice vote. All in favor of the motion to approve and adopt resolution number 04-2023, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion carries, and resolution number 04-2023 is approved and adopted. I'll have to learn to talk faster, so thank you all. But thank you, Logan. Thanks for being here. I didn't know you were coming, so your presence here speaks volumes, and it shows your commitment to helping us. So
Happy to help.
thank you.
I'll just say one thing real quick. If any of you all have any questions about the grant process as we move forward, feel free to get in touch with me, and Rose and Mayor Fraley both have my contact information, so feel free to email me or call me.
Good. Thank you. This resolution brings us one step closer, so thank you. The next item on the agenda is department head reports, and the featured department head today is Priscilla Bloom from our Parks and Recreation Department. Priscilla, welcome. You have the floor. Tell us everything that's going great in the parks. I know it's a busy time of the year.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and City Administrator. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening, give you an update. I'll start with the maintenance side of things, and let me mention quickly that we're still looking for some seasonal maintenance workers. If you know anybody that's interested, they can contact Park, HR, and we have obviously applications on the city website. So maintenance crew's been extremely busy. Amongst other things, they've been preparing our sports fields for the spring seasons. A lot of work goes into getting these fields ready for play, and the crew's done a great job. We've begun a project to improve the condition of the football field at Park Expansion. Like all of our athletic fields, they're heavily used, and it needs some attention. We're going to improve the drainage, leveling the field, and just overall make it safer and better for play. Now, as far as softball and baseball fields, those have been ready to go. We just have a few minor details to finish up, like some edging and small things. So like I mentioned, spring sports. Berea Community has begun their softball baseball games. MUSA, which is soccer, has also begun. And Southern Madison football, as well as the Youth League, have begun practice, but their seasons don't begin until April. Maintenance is also working to get the water onto all of our public restrooms, and we're hoping that'll be completed by the end of the week. Normally when we do this, we only have a couple of leaks, but this time we've had several pipes that were burst, and I'm assuming it's due to that deep freeze we had in December, but it is taking more time than usual. I'll switch gears to our programs. As you know, March is Children's Champion Month, so it's been a busy time with lots of activities. And let me say that, you know, we're proud to be part of Children's Champion here in Madison County. We have been for many years. Some of the highlights of this month have been the circus we had at the Folk Center, our St. Patty's Week scavenger hunt throughout the parks, and our annual Mall Madness event, which was just that. It was madness. I think we had about 1,000 folks in attendance at that event, which was at the Richmond Mall. Now, there are a few more Children's Champion activities this month, and you can find those on our Facebook page, along with all of our parks programs you can find on our Facebook page. But I will mention a few more we've got coming up. April 1st, we're hosting Autism Awareness Day at the Folk Center, and we're happy to have a number of local businesses partnering with us on that. April 8th is the annual Kiwanis Easter egg hunt at the skate park. On the 15th, we have a painting class that will be instructed by wonderful local artist Heather Dent. And then on the 22nd, Berea Kids Eat is hosting an Earth Day event that we look forward to being part of. So busy April as well. Let's see here. Other things we're working on, we're in preparation for our upcoming pool season and have been for some time now. And let me also mention we're accepting applications for guards, managers, and swim lesson instructors. And if you can, please share that with everyone, because we have many spots to fill this summer. Probably 25 to 30. So I lost a lot of guards and managers last year. They're kind of like, you know, teachers losing the senior class. We had a lot of that aged out and going out to get real job, big people jobs, you know. But also preparations have begun for our annual 4th of July celebration. A lot of planning goes into that with bands, sound technicians, food, activities, and of course the fireworks. And we're currently looking for a few food trucks to join us, so if anybody listening is interested, please reach out. And as Rose spoke to you last council meeting, we're applying for 2 grants, one with Land and Water Conservation, and the other is a recreational trail program. And we continue to work with Bluegrass Ad, and those grants are due on the 31st of May. And starting to work on my park budget for the upcoming fiscal year, so be kind to the Parks Department, please. That's about it. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to do my best.
Questions for Priscilla or comments? Don't let her off this easy, guys. Cora Jane? I knew Cora Jane wouldn't let you off the hook.
Yes, ma'am.
My favorite place is the park. I spend a lot of time there. When's the pool open? What?
We open Memorial Day weekend is May 27th. And I am pretty sure that Madison County and Berea Community both graduate the day before. So we may, anybody lifeguard that weekend?
Do you know I have those licensed?
Really?
Yes.
I don't, that's right.
Cora Jane.
Learn something new every day, guys.
Yeah, but we open May 27th. Yes, ma'am.
Other questions for Priscilla? Priscilla, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the report and appreciate the work you do every day. Sean or Jay, anything from police or fire while we're on departments heads? All right, we'll move forward to the city administrator's report. Rose Beverly. Rose, you have the floor. What did I forget?
The public comment.
Oh, geez, I did it again. I checked one too many. I apologize. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Would any members of the public like to address the council? Ms. Workman, if you'll come up and state your name and residence address for the record, please.
Do I have to swear this time?
No, you don't have to swear this time.
Eleanor Workman. And what else am I supposed to say?
Your residence address.
Oh, I'm at 351 Christmas Ridge Road.
Thank you, ma'am.
First of all, I want to thank Teresa for her condolences at the last meeting. I was at the planning and zoning meeting, and I asked the question about the 192 unit complex that they had brought to the planning and zoning committee, and I said, what is the drain on our water system? The answer I got was, oh, that's Southern Madison Water District. So while I was contemplating that, somebody else said, but it all comes out of Owsley Fork. And then nobody said anything else. So I don't know if I'll get to more planning and zoning committee meetings, but I hope that someone diligently seeks out this information about what's that drain on our water system, what's that drain on our electrical grid, and what's that drain on our sewer treatment plant. That could be, what, 700 to 800 people in that one unit, building unit, if they put up 192 units in that, plus what's already going on at Beaumont Center. And I just ask that somebody get all the right answers to all those questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Workman. And I will ask Rose to work with Kevin Howard, since Mrs. Workman has requested an answer. If we could get a approximate water usage and how that might impact our overall water supply, and we'll get a email or a phone call to you, Ms. Workman. Thank you. Any other members of the public like to address the council? All right, ma'am, if you'll come up and if you would state your name and your residence address for the record, please. While you're coming up, we've kind of changed our rules around. We do ask for comments to be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask for it to be business related to business of the city. You have the floor, ma'am.
I'm Anna Keller. I live at 208 South Powell Avenue, apartment 2. I am working with people in a couple of different cities in Kentucky to propose that we apply for a corridor identification grant from the United States Department of Transportation for a passenger rail line from Cincinnati through Georgetown, Lexington, Winchester, Richmond, Berea, London, Corbin, and on down to Knoxville. We have a sponsor in Winchester City Council, and we have some interest from the Kentucky State Department of Transportation. The first grant is due on Monday. I'm sorry, I'm a full-time mom and a full-time nurse. I'm doing the best I can. I believe we'll get that in. But one of the things that they ask is that if any municipalities along the route are interested, they can write a letter of support and attach it to the grant. The first grant is $500,000. It'll be awarded in 6 months. And it is simply for the initial stage of planning, to prepare a statement, to prepare the service development plan, to prepare a cost estimate, to complete the service development plan, and to build out the grantee or corridor sponsor's capacity to support the development of the corridor. And that money doesn't go to private entities, it only goes to municipal or state government with a unique entity identifier. So we'll be putting that in on behalf of Winchester City Council, but we ask for Berea to consider supporting the plan for passenger rail. Thank you.
If you could get with either our city clerk, Robin Adams, that's right next to me, or Rose, that's on the end, if you can hang around till after the meeting or slip them a note with your email address. What I'd like to do is to get you to email the information that you have to them, and they'll make sure that I get it and the council members get it. And just, if you would include instructions once we can correspond back and forth on how to get that back to you, if you need it in paper form, or if it can be just an electronic, like an email letter of support. Because from what I'm hearing, if you had more than one, that would probably be helpful. If you had one from different council members, correct?
Absolutely.
But we'll get that information in their hands, and that interesting project, I hadn't heard of that, so it's very intriguing to me, so I'll be interested in seeing that. And council members will get that out to you, and you can use your judgment as to whether you want to do a letter of support in response to her request. So thank you. Steve, you can go right ahead.
Do you need those? You need those by Monday, right? So like if we were to put those as part of the application, you would need them before Monday?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
Check.
It's all right. We can do it. We're used to short notice. We can get that for you this week, hopefully.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you. But get in touch with Rose. There's her card, and if you'll email her the information, and feel free to call her or any of us, and then we'll disseminate that for you.
Okay, thank you all
Thank
so
you for
much.
coming. Appreciate it. Would any other members of the public like to address the council? All right. Aaron, I was waiting to see if you were getting up to talk or if you were just getting up to be courteous. You were getting up to be courteous. All right, we'll move ahead. Thank you all. Next, I did skip that again, and Rose, I apologize. This is the city administrator's report. Rose, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will piggyback on something that Priscilla said. I just wanted to highlight that we are now in full swing of preparing the 23-24 budget. Preparing a top quality budget takes a lot of time and effort with the department heads and of course with our finance director, Susan. And it's easy to throw numbers together. Anyone, a lot of people could do that, but we don't, that's not what we're doing. We're using our budget as a tool and a way to measure our planning and being very careful with it. And so I just want to thank everyone in advance for your patience with us as we get a little bit busy and distracted with the budget a bit, and Susan and all the department heads for their work that they're about to put in on this. The next thing I'd like to talk about is Ellipse Street. The last time I talked to you about Ellipse Street, I told you that we were planning on possibly being able to put out the RFP for that right about now, or maybe even a little earlier than now. Unfortunately, I feel like the referee's thrown a flag on the field, and like we haven't had enough with this project. So the individual we've been working with at DLG, Department of Local Government, is no longer with them for whatever reason, and we've been assigned a new individual to work with, and she's trying to help us put the ball back in motion, but unfortunately another wrench has been thrown in that from now moving forward with any TAP grants, you have to have a certified inspector on the project while the work is being done the entire time. This is not something that the Commonwealth has any control over. This is a requirement from the federal government grant program, the TAP grant program. And so now we are looking to figure out how to make that happen. And once we figure that out, we'll put a plan together and present it to DLG, and then they will allow us to put out the RFP. So this project has been delayed, I would say no less than probably 2 months now, because we have to put the plan together and then submit the plan and get approval on the plan. We're working with our engineer on that. So I just want to give you guys an update on that. And I believe we'll get through it. And they did all highlight of that, and that's obviously going to be expensive. But they did say that they would do an 80-20 split with us on those costs. So that is helpful. So that will add to our costs of this project. But we did not expect them to be willing to pay, so we're happy about that. I wanted to let you guys know that the RFP for the street resurfacing project was put into the paper last week. The deadline for submission is April 3rd at 4 p.m. I'll keep you posted on how that bid comes in. Hopefully it will come in good. We have a lot of streets on there, so we're excited to give the streets of Bree another facelift, as many as we can get done. And finally, again, I'll just put a plug in, piggybacking on Priscilla, for our projects, the pool project and the old concession bathrooms project. If you can get me a letter of support, I would be so grateful for that. As you know, deadline is May 31st. If you need a template or anything, just let me know. We'd be grateful for those letters. It really does help our chances with the grants. That is all that I have, and I would take questions.
Questions for Rose? Ronnie?
Rose, I'm gonna ask you a question, but Fairstown's bridge, have you heard what the state's doing on that? I mean, because you guys come up here and tell us any news.
Ronnie, I can cover that because,
All right.
yeah.
You don't
let
want
me-
you up here.
Well, I do, but I want to cover that because I've actually been briefed by the Transportation Cabinet as well as Aaron Banther, who's here, and has been to the Transportation Cabinet to meet with them. They originally planned to let that or put it out for bid this spring, was what we had been told. And the most recent information we have is that's been delayed until probably December. And a lot of that revolves around the railroad and getting permission from the railroad. So it's still on the books, but it's been delayed again. So that's the most recent on that. Other questions for Rose?
Thank you, Ronnie, for not letting me down. He promised me a question tonight, so I couldn't answer it, but
Do you have any sense of when we will be getting like the first draft of the new budget? That's a few months away still.
yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
the plan in front of me, but I can
Sure.
email you that
It's-
information.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, right now we've been working on the CIP plans and we're working on some strategic planning stuff, so I'm meeting with each of the department heads. So that's what we're doing right now.
Other questions for Rose? Cora Jane?
I don't have a question, just a request, but could you send us all a template for the parks to do a letter?
Yes.
Just send it all to us all?
Yeah.
And does it only have to be from the council, or who can it be from?
Oh, it can be from the council and any citizen of the city or anybody who uses the pool for that matter. You don't have to live in Berea to support the pool or our parks. So it could be from anyone, and we would be incredibly grateful for any and all letters of support.
Okay. Get that taken.
Thank you.
Questions or comments for Rose? All right, seeing none, I'll move forward and I'll see if I can stay on the agenda here and not skip anybody over. The next item on the agenda is mayor's comments, and mine simply today were to thank Judge Taylor, Rob Meinrich, Grayson Evans, and Nikki from New Vista and Zinnia, our own Zinnia, for being here for that very educational and informational work session. I would encourage all of you to reflect on what was said, and because that's something that we haven't done this before, and I think that Rose and I need to hear from you on what your opinions and your thoughts are on that process going forward. And I think that there will be a role for us to play, both locally and with the treatment center. That's a pretty lofty goal, but a good goal. And also, I want to compliment Jennifer Lanehart. She always reaches out and she makes sure that even though Hope's Wings domestic violence program is headquartered in Richmond, she makes sure that Berea is included. And I know she's left already, but I'm very grateful for that and the work that she does and making sure that we have representation on the board. So that concludes the mayor's comments, and I'll next move to council comments and begin with Mr. Rowlett. David.
I've got two or three things. The first thing is I want to encourage our listeners to take advantage of some of the programs and services offered through the Parks and Recreation this summer. I'm a member of that committee, and I think they have a lot of opportunities for our young folks and even some adults and things from time to time. So I want to encourage that. Also, as I begin to look throughout the community and things, I see several businesses that are still struggling to hire staff. That's not unique to Berea. It's not unique to this state. It's a problem nationwide. But all of us have friends and family who, because of the things that have occurred in the last few years, in my opinion, are grossly underemployed. they can do better. They can't sit there and wait for those people to seek them out. They've got to get up and go find these jobs, and there's plenty of them out there. The other thing, while we're talking about jobs, is this time of year we have a lot of young folks in high school and college. Their best opportunity is to don't waste any time over the next few weeks, but get out there and get involved, actively participate and seek out internships and co-op opportunities. Those are things that when we go out and apply for jobs, everybody expects you to have a certain amount of experience. That's one of the best ways to get experience. Even if you have to volunteer a little bit to get your name in the hopper, seek out some of those opportunities. And please, if you're a young person looking for employment with the opportunities with Parks and Recreation, there's certainly some needs there, and I would encourage you to apply there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Next, we'll move to Ms. Startzman. Katie.
Also grateful for the work session. Thank you, Mayor Fraley and Administrator Beverly, for facilitating that. And I'm grateful that we could hear from the folks directly involved in our chambers as well. So it's great to continue that conversation. I look forward to seeing how that goes. It was also really helpful to hear from Zinnia. So I'm grateful for that. And thanks to the residents who came to join our meeting today. It's so great to have you all here. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Ms. Centers. Teresa.
It's been a good meeting. I feel like we have forward impetus at last, and I'm glad to see members of the Fairstown community here this evening. We're actually see something physically happening is a really good thing, and you all have a good week.
Thank you, ma'am. And next, we'll move to Mr. Davis. Jim, you have the floor. I didn't forget you.
Okay, thank you. Couple of things. Thanks to all the people that came and spoke about the new drug center tonight. That's an exciting project, and I hope we can get it done, or Berea can help get it done. Mayor, I've got a question. You mentioned the state was holding up, or the railroad was holding up the bridge at Fairstown. They got any money in the game, or is it just can you answer that, or?
That I really don't have an answer for, Jim. I can get with you and I can ask Kelly Baker. He's very open about communicating about it, and I think there's a commitment to get it done. But as far as the money in the game, I don't know. I don't think the railroad has to pay for anything to install the bridge, but I think the original bridge was actually owned by the railroad. So there may be some issues with the removal and that kind of thing. I really don't know the delays, and I can also get with Aaron, who's here. We'd pass the public comment, but I'll pick Aaron's brain. That give me a good excuse to call him tomorrow, and anything I find out from Aaron, I'll pass along to you.
Thank you.
You're
Seems like a lame excuse to me.
Well,
as far as the railroad's concerned.
I think they really wanted to let it. I don't think that there's any kind of an intentional delay. Kelly seemed to be very concerned that he wanted to get it let and bid out this spring and just couldn't do it, so.
No, I'm not blaming the state, I'm blaming the railroad, so.
I don't know.
Or somebody, okay.
I don't know. We need to make friends with the railroad, so.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Go ahead.
That's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And next we'll move to Mr. Little. Jerry. Thank you, sir. Next we'll move to Mr. Cottle. Steve?
I'll say this was mentioned by Teresa, but having the Fairstown Community Center CDBG grant on there it's just really encouraging when you see local government and the process work. And what I mean by that is that the community of Fairstown and the citizens of Berea, and that's one group, but the work that was put in, there was an issue that they felt like wasn't being addressed in their community. They came to us, we worked through it, we talked about it. They've continued to be engaged, and it's just so often, and I don't mean this to be critical, but it sounds that way. So often people come here, they have a problem, we try to fix it, we either do or we don't, they're happy about it or they're not, and you never hear from them again. And the Fairstown community has stayed lockstep with us and tried to find ways for all of us to work together. They've done 10 times more than we have. I mean, it's encouraging when this whole process works, because sometimes it does not, and sometimes it's real slow. And you know, kind of going back to the railroad, you know, we had those original meetings surrounding the railroad and the bridge and the zoning of that area of industrial park, and it's really kind of led to, I think, a lot of really good conversations and partnerships, and it's going somewhere much better than I can tell you that I ever imagined when we had this conversation 7 months ago. And so, or it may be longer than that. But anyway, kudos to all of them for the work that they've continued to put in. If you follow them in their group, they are constantly doing something and keeping everybody kind of updated on that. I think it's Friends of the Fairstown community, but anyway, it's really good to see that. I'm also excited about the public comment related to potentially seeing what may be there for a railroad option. I'll be honest, I didn't even know that was kind of on the horizon, but it's an exciting opportunity. And then I will also say, Priscilla presented tonight, our parks are fantastic, our fields are unbelievable. I am thankful every time that I coach a soccer game in Berea that I'm on a Berea soccer field. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Steve. Next we'll move to Miss Wilson, Cora Jane.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Judge Taylor and Rob and the ladies with New Vista and Xenia. You know, that's probably long overdue here, because our jails, you know, we fuss about, they arrest them, they let them out. But if there's something that they had to go to in rehabilitation, that will be great. So I think it's a win-win. And good to see Aaron and Marilyn, and I know your name, and I'll think of it as soon as I pass on to Ronnie. But anyway, good to see you all here. And I have one question. The railroad, is that R.J. Corman?
No, I think it's actually CSX.
Okay. That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Cora Jane. And for the last word, Mr. Terrell, Ronnie.
I'm gonna talk about trains. I don't think we should have anything to do with trains, the way they're turning over up Ohio. I mean, because that's always 2 or 3. But I've got a complaint with Berea College, the traffic handling. With COVID, they quit. Didn't have half students went home. Now we got all of them back. And when they have chapel or whatever it is, they back traffic up. And apparently, they won't listen to their police chief or whatever, but we either get to the president or somebody to get a security guy at Berea College who knows how to handle traffic and don't let it back up under both stoplights, both ways. It's a mess, and we need to do something about it. I'm done.
Thank you, Ronnie. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
David Rowlett, and the second by Steve Cottle. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. The